progress is the result that occurs when we stop making trouble for ourselves. This is automatic. This is a natural effect when we stop self-sabotaging, when we get out of our own way, when we stop making trouble for ourselves, we just move forward.
Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, the weekly show for nomads, work campers, RVers, and entrepreneurs looking to earn a living or build a business while enjoying the RV lifestyle. This week's host is Jim Nelson. Let's settle in and enjoy the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, brought to you by RV Life.
Good morning, Viet Nam! I have always wanted to do that here, and now it's totally appropriate because I just had a fun and fascinating discussion with ďuan GIểN in Saigon. I've known my guest and friend as Dave Berman for many years, but he has now adopted the name ďuan GIểN, which literally translates to simple in Vietnamese. Dave has settled in Vietnam after traveling to many countries on his Help the World Laugh tour. Along the way, he produced more than 1,000 videos of people laughing with him from all over the world, while posting a video every single day for nearly 3.5 years. Dave is an author and coach who is now focused on helping others discover infinite simplicity as ďuan GIểN. We take a trip through his Simple Book of Infinity, which is an elegant presentation that will open your mind to the infinite supplies of creativity, potential awareness, and yes, laughter that we all have within us. We can all discover these infinite possibilities and become the best we can be if, as ďuan GIểN tells us, we learn to get out of our own way. And don't worry, he shares some helpful tips for getting started. Spoiler alert, that might include a little intentional laughter. So hang on for this wild ride through the Simple Book of Infinity and prepare to discover the infinite supplies of imagination, stories, and curiosity that you can tap into whenever you're feeling stuck, or if you just want to simplify. Then join us for a brief bit of noisy meditation as we laugh together, experiencing the sound of joyful breathing. But first, this is No Laughing Matter.
Do you struggle with inadequate cooling in your RV during those sweltering summer months? The issue might be simpler than you think. Did you know that your RV air conditioners are not directly connected to any air ducts in most cases? This common setup drastically reduces their efficiency. Cool RV has engineered a brilliant solution to bridge this gap, priced at only $84.95 each with free shipping. Dive into the details at coolrv.com. That's cool with a K, rv.com. Podcast listeners can save 5% with code RVLife. Attention detail-oriented explorers. Do you crave adventure and thrive in independent work environments? ID Plans seeks data rock stars to travel the country surveying commercial properties. Gain or use your tech skills like laser measuring and 3D cameras to gather data on everything from rooftop HVAC units to parking spaces. Challenge yourself in all weather conditions and enjoy the flexibility of managing your own schedule. This is more than a job. It's a chance to explore new places while putting your skills to the test. Competitive pay per project awaits. Are you ready to map your next adventure? Send your resume and work history to workcamperjob@idplans.com. Don't miss out.
Dave, it's great to see you again. Thanks so much for joining me, or should I say ďuan GIểN?
ďuan GIểN. Thank you, Jim. It's great to see you too.
Very good. We're going to get into what that means real shortly here, but thanks again for joining me. This is the RV Life Entrepreneur Podcast, technically, so I ask all of my guests 2 simple questions, and I don't believe you had an RV, but we're going to get into your world travels. But do you have any memories of RVing as a kid, or any RVing experiences that you tend to stick out?
I never had RV experiences as a kid. I remember rendezvousing with you and Renee a couple of times and getting to stay in your RV. And one other memory. When I was in my mid 20s, there was a band that I loved that was like sequestered in rural Vermont as they were recording their next album. And I went and I stayed with them and camped out with them one night and slept in their RV. That's, I think, my experience with RVing. Oh, and one other time when I was, in England in 2017, when I was on the Help the World Laugh tour, there was a laughter festival that I went to, and I got there by RV. Someone who I was friends with, like, rented it for the festival, like not a full-time RVer at all, just didn't have a better way to get to the festival and rented an RV, and I traveled and stayed in the RV at the festival.
I remember that you were asking us about certain systems and they were totally different electronics, but I do consider you a true digital nomad. And we're going to get into the world travel bit in a second. So my second question for all my guests is, you've been an entrepreneur pretty much as long as I've known you, at least. What does it take to be an entrepreneur? What does it mean to you?
I guess it takes some independence, willingness to go it alone. But if you just completely go it alone, you're probably going to find that you want some sort of partnerships and collaborations and, so being willing to team up with people, being willing to take chances, being willing to grow and learn and evolve and change what you're offering and how you're presenting it. That's what comes to mind for me.
All the above. And that last thing you mentioned, you've had recent experience doing. I want to get into those world travels that eventually took you to Vietnam, but you will always be Dave Berman to me. But tell me, who is ďuan Gian and why have you adopted this name?
ďuan Gian is the Vietnamese word that means simple in English. And last year, I adopted it as my name. And it's partly inspired by frequently meeting young Vietnamese adults who speak English and choose to go by English names.
Interesting. So simple. We're going to be talking about simple and simplicity quite a bit. And speaking of which, I want to dive deep into your simple book of infinity and your new direction you have with this infinite simplicity. I think that has a lot of wisdom to share with our guests here. But I've got to take a step back first. Over the years, you've said and done a number of things that have really stuck with me. And it might have even been shortly after we met, but you were very vocal about the broken election system, or you were really involved. And I admired your passion. And I wanted to help, but I wasn't really in a place to really get too involved. You told me, do the least you can do. Can you explain that thinking?
Yeah, a lot of times we kind of freeze or hold ourselves back in some other way from taking action because the ideas in our heads seem really big. But if we just identify the least we can do and commit to doing at least that much, there's always an available next step, and it's always within reach, and you can identify it for yourself. It's not going to be the same for everybody, so you don't have to follow my instructions or have a guide for this. It's literally like, just take the next baby step and then see what happens as the consequences, the ripple effects of having taken that little baby step, because then you'll be kind of looking at a new landscape, and what seems possible as the next least you can do step will be different. And if you keep doing the least you can do over and over again, your least will expand or increase. And before long, the things you're doing will seem far bigger than you really imagined was possible for you. You, in particular, Jim, sort of like glommed onto this idea. And I'm not surprised you asked me about it, because we've known each other for 20 years now, and you've repeatedly gone back to this idea. So I think if you're going to ask me about that, as you just did, it would make a lot of sense for you to share with your audience how you have embraced and internalized that, how as least you can do served you well over the years.
Thank you, because that's exactly what I was going to mention, is that really stuck with me. I mean, it was like almost like an epiphany when you told me, especially the latter part of it, the ladder, literally the ladder. Like, you have this big problem, this big issue that you're trying to solve or tackle. And what is the least thing you can do in that direction? And then repeat, and then repeat, and then repeat. So by doing the least thing a number of times, you eventually get to the real big thing. by taking these simple steps.
Yeah, it is a simplification. I didn't necessarily see it that way in the beginning of using that phrase and kind of, sharing the idea behind that phrase. But sure, now I can see that it is a simple way to get unstuck, a simple way to, move from inaction to action.
Right. It leads us into the simple thinking that we're going to, deep dive into. But first, you also introduced Renee and I to laughter yoga. Can you just briefly explain kind of the science or benefits of laughter?
Yeah, laughter and laughter yoga feel like two different things to me now. I didn't always see them as very separate and distinct. And so I've kind of moved on and graduated from laughter yoga. And I see laughter now as formless, as infinite, as breath plus sound. The same as speaking, but without words and thinking. If you're breathing, you can laugh, right? Every breath is an opportunity to laugh. Laughter is the sound of joyful breathing. And we don't need anything external to laugh at or laugh about. And that idea I first picked up from laughter yoga. It's saying that we don't need jokes and comedy and humor, but laughter yoga is still very much based in techniques that they call laughter exercises, and they're meant to be playful and childlike, but it's very much like follow the leader, do what the facilitator shows you to do. And I reached a point where that didn't make sense to me anymore. And so my exploration of laughter as simply breath and sound became this very formless, spiritual, infinite journey that has taken me around the world and showed me a lot about simplicity and many other, deeper ideas.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get into that. I think the laughter yoga and the sessions and the leaders are kind of like an organized way to introduce people to it and get the benefits of the science with the what you call the mitochondria, the mitochondria and the endorphins and those things that we benefit from laughing, which I'll just drop some links in the show notes to go down that rabbit hole for anyone. But I do want to come back to that infinite laughter supply that we all have inside of us that you mentioned in the book we're going to be talking about. But since we have so many content creators listening, I've got to talk about Daily Laughers for a minute. So it's a little segue here into what you did for 3.5 years. You produced a video a day for how long?
Yeah, almost 3.5 years. There were 1,169 videos when I stopped the Laugh of the Day series.
And what was the concept?
Well, the concept was I have been laughing on purpose as an exploration, personal journey, as well as for physical health and mental well-being, and just exploring what can I learn from the experience of laughing. I've been into that every day for like more than 13 years now, and it was informing my work as a coach and hypnotherapist, and I just kept going, like the least I could do, the least I could do. And it kept taking me to new places. It kept showing me new ways to help people, new ways of looking at my own experience of just being alive. And so I had this notion that if I can laugh every day, then anybody could laugh every day. And I'm just going to start showing my experience of laughing each day so that people could laugh along with me. That was at the beginning of 2016, the first day of the year. I said, I'm just going to do it for a year. Every day I'll make a video. And by the end of the year, I'd laughed with people from all 50 United States and 54 other countries, and built a big online community of followers who wanted me to continue and help make possible not just continuing on into a second year, but leaving the US and traveling around the world. And so that was the first half of the second year in 2017. And when this Help the World Laugh Tour was concluded, and I can't not mention that you were the one that suggested the name Help the World Laugh Tour. I got that name from you. When the tour was over and I could go anywhere, I wound up choosing to come to Saigon in Viet Nam. And I didn't know I would end up staying here so long, but I was here for almost 2 years before I left. And then eventually I was able to return, and I've been here for more than a year now, my second go round.
There was a little thing called COVID in there somewhere. You were in Australia and couldn't get out.
Yeah.
And so that's the world travel and the digital
Yeah.
nomad aspect.
Yeah. When I was ready to return to Vietnam, I thought I was going to visit Melbourne, Australia for 1 month first. But that's when COVID started, and I ended up staying there for 3 years before finally getting back to Vietnam. So, yeah, my international travels have, of course, been unpredictable and wild and interesting, and, contributed to me being who I am now, finding my way to becoming Dunzan.
And that kind of leads me to, your realization, and you have a tattoo on your arm now, or the first one actually. It says now. And I want to ask you, what do you mean by simplify and slow down to the speed of now? And what's our first step to doing that?
Slow down to the speed of now. Yeah, that's a new phrase that's just emerged recently. I got this now tattoo on my left wrist where I'll never wear a watch. That was in 2018. I'd been in Vietnam for, quite a while at that point, and my relationship with time had changed greatly. I came here right at the conclusion of a group coaching program that I'd been in as a client or a student. And when I went into that program, I thought that my main objective was to improve my time management skills. And, I went through the program. It ended like right at the same time that I got here to Vietnam. I was having new experiences I'd never had before, living in a country where I didn't know anybody and I didn't speak the language at all. And I was making these daily videos, and I found my favorite thing to do here was to just wander the streets and laugh and play with the random people I was spontaneously meeting. And that was teaching me a lot about myself and about life. And these were lessons that were appearing in the videos. And eventually I realized that I didn't have a time management issue at all. I never did. It was just my relationship with time needed to evolve. And the tattoo was kind of a reminder of all of that.
I think it was shortly after that or sometime around there. Maybe it was a little later, but you actually interviewed Renee and I and kind of talked about our book, Be More Dog, Learning to Live in the Now. And we had a little video I'll drop in the notes about living in the now and what that means. But now I want to talk about the simple book of infinity. I mean, it's just so beautiful the way it's put together. And you've got this subtitle, Simplicity is only as complicated as you make it. This relates to another thing you talk about, how we are often getting in our own way. What do you mean by that?
Well, a common term people will recognize is self-sabotage. We often do things that kind of go against our own interests. We get in our own way, or we make trouble for ourselves. All of those things, to me, are saying the same thing. And it's a human experience that I believe everybody's had to some degree and likely continue to have, like perpetuate. Many years ago, I was very positively impacted by seeing a quote. It's not attributed to anybody. I found it on the packaging of a little amulet that I bought to go on a necklace. And the amulet had the Chinese symbol for progress. And the packaging came with a sentence on it that gave a definition of progress that still is deeply meaningful to me. I don't have the amulet anymore, but this quote said, "Progress is the result that occurs when we stop making trouble for ourselves." Progress is the result that occurs when we stop making trouble for ourselves. And what I took from that, and like over time saw in new and deeper ways, was that this is automatic. This is a natural effect when we stop self-sabotaging, when we get out of our own way, when we stop making trouble for ourselves, we just move forward. So I started to identify ways that I was creating trouble for myself or getting in my own way. And often the least I could do was to just stop the one little thing that was causing all my problems, or at least some problem that seemed to interfere with moving forward or progress.
How can someone identify or just realize that they are in their own way? And what are the steps we take to get out of our way? I mean, sometimes we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, right? And then we do. So it's not a step-by-step thing. I can't give you instructions. I can't tell you how. I can talk with you. Like as a coach, that's what I do. I have a favorite compliment. I don't know if you have a favorite compliment, Jim. If you do, I want to hear what it is. But for me, I often hear this phrase that I love to hear. People say to me, wow, I never looked at it like that before. People talk to me about the way the world looks to them, the way they self-identify, how they make sense of their experience. And we talk about it, and from the conversation, some new way of looking at things always seems to emerge. And now I call that your infinite storytelling supply. Like you can always see things from an endless variety of perspectives, but mostly we're locked into one. And when we're locked into that one, we don't see how it's limiting us, how it's holding us back. So as soon as we begin to see that it's just a story, it's just a thought I'm thinking now, it may not even be true. There's alternate ways of looking at it. Once you start to explore those alternatives, those other stories, you may find yourself saying, wow, I never looked at it like that before, but that's not really the important thing. That's just how I know we're making progress when I'm coaching. But anybody who has that kind of experience, they're going to see in their own way, in their own experience, that progress is the result that occurs when you stop making trouble for yourself. And often it's in a way you just didn't notice, simply by believing a thing you believed that wasn't true.
This kind of, leads me into how you describe the basis of the book, where you mention we are infinite beings pretending not to be. But pretending suggests intention, as though someone is trying not to be something. Why do you think most of us try not to be infinite? Do we just not realize we are?
Well, I don't share that view that it has to be intentional. I think we're often pretending not to be infinite, and we're not realizing that we're doing that. And just realizing that can be a least you can do sort of thing, right? So if I feel stuck, for example, if I feel like I've got no idea what to do, everything I'm trying is like banging my head against the wall, that's sort of a clue for me. Okay, I'm not noticing, my infinite supplies that are always available. What's the first one I can become aware of? And often that's just laughter. My infinite laughter supply is always available. That's the first of all the infinite supplies that I noticed and became aware of. It's the one that I dove into most deeply. It's the one that helped me discover that there's all these other infinite supplies that are always available. It's the one that led me to see your infinite simplicity supply is always available. Infinite complexity too. Simplicity is only as complicated as you make it. So there's the self-sabotage that comes into my experience all the time. I make things more complicated than they need to be. And as soon as I realize that, I may laugh, or I may realize the story that I'm making up and living in as if it's true is not true. So then I get to look at things in a new way. I mean, I know it's powerful and important when people say to me, wow, I never looked at it like that before, because I think that myself all the time. Every time I think, wow, I never looked at it like that before, it's a game changer for me. So when people say it to me, I know they're experiencing something profound. And that's why that's my favorite compliment.
Ever found yourself lost in the middle of nowhere with no signal? With the RV Life app, that's a thing of the past. Enjoy reliable offline navigation, lane guidance, and turn-by-turn voice directions, ensuring you're always on the right path. Navigate the open road with ease and confidence. Visit rvlife.com to download the app today and start exploring without limits.
I never looked at it that way, Dave. And my comment about pretending was only because I think someone has to try to pretend. And that brought up another memory, another gem of wisdom you gave me once. And I don't know what I was doing, but I was really, at some point in our lives, I was trying really hard or working hard towards something. And I asked you for advice and you said, what's the opposite of try? So talk to me about allowing instead of trying. Allow, you
Yeah.
explained, is the opposite of try. And that was another kind of light you opened up for me. And I kind of took a step back about whatever it was at the time. I stopped trying so hard and allowed it to happen. So tell me where that came from and more about it.
I don't know where it came from. I mean, there's lots of references to that I've encountered in my life. And so I've explored it and found my own insights around it. I think of allowing as being like a yin yang sort of complementary relationship with trying, but maybe other words too, like resistance. When we stop resisting, then we allow. So the resistance is getting in our own way, making trouble for ourselves, and allowing enables progress, the result that occurs when we stop resisting or getting in our own way. Trying to me implies effort, and I think pretending sometimes treads on or trades on or relies on effort that we don't even necessarily recognize that we're expending. So if we find ourselves like spinning our wheels, we're trying to get going, but we're not going anywhere, And so it's about just the awareness. Like if you can see where you're trying, if you can see your fist is clenched in a ball, just relax. Open your hand. Like see the emptiness of your palm and just allow whatever else is there to be noticed to come into your awareness.
While we're talking about this, I came across another gem in the Simple Book earlier, and you say, may the allow be with you, as in, may the
Yeah.
force be with you. So instead of forcing our concentration on a certain outcome, you suggest we relax and allow. Is this one way to tap into our infinite curiosity supply?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the infinite curiosity supply, like all your infinite supplies, it's always available. So you're either noticing it or you're not noticing it. But the thing is, it's infinite, so you can never notice all of it. Sometimes you don't notice any of it. So all you really are kind of invited into here is to just remember, just become aware, just look in that direction and start to notice. It's not prescriptive. It's not a technique. It's not follow these steps. It's just remember you are infinite. Stop pretending you are not infinite. That pretending can be effortless, doesn't require effort or trying. It's innocent, like a misunderstanding, and it's temporary. It's not permanent. It's not who you really are. It's just this misunderstanding, this thought that you didn't even realize you were thinking necessarily, and it was never true. And once you realize, oh, I was thinking something untrue, it seems kind of silly, but you don't have to try not to believe it. You don't have to try to stop thinking it. You just look at it differently. Wow, I never looked at it like that before. And you live according to how things look to you. So when it looks true, you act as if it's true, and you might struggle. You might keep banging your head against the wall until you realize there's actually no wall to bang your head on. You've imagined it. So just stop imagining it. So that's, another way of articulating getting out of your own way.
Readers are going to, discover all of the infinite supplies you talk about in these beautiful little parables in the book. But back to the curiosity one, why is it so important to be so curious?
That could be a different answer for everybody. And it could be a different answer for me if you ask me the question a million times. I might have a different answer every single time. To me, it's part of who we are. If you look at human babies, they're curious about everything, and their curiosity will evolve over time. Their way of exploring and trying to satisfy their curiosity will evolve. When they're really little, they want to put everything in their mouth, but you don't do that now when you're curious about something. I mean, books are not that tasty. You can't eat a YouTube video, but you have lots of ways of exploring your curiosity. Sometimes it's asking a question of a stranger. It could be anything. Your supply of curiosity is infinite, and it doesn't require any sort of guardrails. It doesn't require rules or like a particular approach to how to express your curiosity or explore your curiosity. To me, it's really just valuable to know my curiosity supply is infinite and always available.
Yeah. You also say it's important to notice the extraordinary in the ordinary and the
Oh, yeah.
unfamiliar in the familiar. I
hmm
understand why that's important, but how can we do that? How can we, as you say, calibrate your powers of observation? What is that? How do we do that?
Well, for me, that's been largely through laughing, not entirely. The laughing is not a technique to accomplish what you're asking. So I don't want the listeners to hear, oh, I'm going to have to start laughing every day. I mean, you can. And if you want support with that, like I'm a good candidate to support you in that. But I'm not saying everybody must approach it that way, right? I'm saying that whatever you think you know can be known in new deeper ways if you keep exploring it. Maybe in the Zen tradition, they call it the beginner's mind. I'm just suggesting that there's always something new and different to be noticed. Noticing is where the juice is, it's where the magic is. So I continue to explore laughter, this very familiar thing. Everybody on earth has been laughing since they were a baby, before they could make sense of what makes something funny, or before they have a native tongue to articulate and explain anything. They've got this gift of laughter inside them. And so I keep exploring this gift, and people might wonder, doesn't that get boring? Doesn't that get old? And the truth is, no, because it's new and different all the time. I can always see the unfamiliar hidden amidst the familiar. And this has gifted me so many insights that I just keep sharing.
You know, that comes back to the curiosity question I had, and it explains it perfectly to me why it's important to be curious, because it's like the yes and that we've often
hmm
talked about. You know, you're curious about something and you don't know what exists. So you open yourself to that infinite supply of curiosity and you identify it, but then go the next step. What are you curious about next? Talk about the yes and concept for people who might not know what that means and what it can do for people.
Well, I got introduced to the phrase yes and when I was taking improv theater classes. And the idea was that you start with a blank slate, there's no script. You're on stage with somebody you may not even know at all, and you just go and you make stuff up. And it's entertaining for the audience because you're just being present in the now and accepting whatever comes up. So the idea that I was taught was whatever your scene partner says, whatever, whoever else is on stage, whatever they say to you, respond with the essence of yes and. You don't have to say those actual words, but inside yourself you accept it. So if someone says, gosh, this weather is awful and I'm freezing, you don't say, well, what are you talking about? The sun is out, it's beautiful. Like, you start to shiver as well, and you flip your collar up and you begin to act as if what that person said was true in this imaginary scene. So you're giving a response that reflects yes and, even if you don't use the words yes and I've just, I guess, over the years built on that and seen that that's possible in all sorts of contexts, not just on a stage doing improv performing.
Yes, and it leads to the next step. Once you've identified that certain thing, you start, being curious again about what the next thing is or what the next least thing you can do to move on and on and on and repeat. And as one of my mentors often says, in whatever you're doing in business, and if something's not working, it's wash, rinse, repeat. It's identify it. Yes, and what is the next step oh, that didn't work. Okay. And what is the next step? So I can definitely see how it relates to putting together an improv strip or when it comes to being stuck. We have a recent article from one of our hosts in the RVE news blog about getting stuck and things you can do. And it's about getting out of your own way, kind of in an essence, because you stop and you go for a walk or you go for a run or you breathe or you do something creative. And I think it's that yes and mentality. When you're stuck, it can really help you get out of your own way, right?
Well, one word that you said really jumps out at me above all the others, and it's creative or creativity. Your infinite creativity supply is always available.
You are reading my screen, Dave. This was literally the next discussion I wanted to have with you about the infinite creativity, the infinite awareness. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, look, you are creating your perception in real time, moment by moment. Every single moment, you are creating whatever it is you're aware of in the way that you're aware of it. I don't mean that like this desk or your computer is imaginary, but your perception of it. Is it too far away or too close? Is it too loud or not loud enough or whatever? These are perceptions and you create them. You're always creating your perception. And that's the nature of thought taking form.
So, thoughts versus feelings. That's kind of the next thing I wanted to talk about, actually, because feeling true simplicity is often hindered by overthinking. And I know because I do that a lot. I tend to overthink things and make them more complicated myself.
Hi, welcome, human.
Oh, awesome. Woo, I could just move on. But maybe, it's a big concept in the mindfulness and the meditation, the thinking versus feeling. Could you give me your thoughts on thinking versus feeling and thoughts versus feelings?
Your infinite thought supply is always available. It's a formless energy of the universe, and you can never notice all the thoughts because it's an infinite supply. But whatever thoughts you're noticing now, that's what you feel. So it's thought like a capital T, that's universal formless energy. You notice a piece of it at any particular moment, and that's your personal thinking, like a little t, right? In your little mind, your little personal mind, you are thinking about something in the infinite thought supply. And whatever it is, you feel that in real time. But you don't always realize it because our thinking creates all sorts of illusions. Thoughts we think that aren't true can be a way of self-sabotaging or getting in our own way. We often attribute our feelings to things other than thought taking form in the moment. Like we blame our circumstances, our situations, our bank account, other people. We blame all sorts of things. And maybe if it's not blame, it's attribute, like maybe a more neutral word, right? We give credit for our feelings to all sorts of things when the feelings only ever come from one place. And it's a real-time reflection of our thinking in that moment. We can think anything because we have an infinite thought supply always available.
So we've been talking about a lot of things that stuck out to me from your simple book of infinity. But I want to know what you're doing at Dave Berman Coaching, where you say discover infinite simplicity. What do you mean by infinite simplicity and how do we get there? Because everyone wants it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're already there. We just get in the way of noticing it, right? That's why I say simplicity is only as complicated as you make it. Like you will complicate things more than necessary because you're human. I do it too. Like we all do this. So just being able to see that allows us to stop pretending that we're not infinite. It allows us to remember that we are infinite beings having a human experience.
And you're helping people do this in a number of ways. What is an imagination partner?
Well, I have just found that phrase amusing and rewarding and refreshing, and it can mean whatever you make it up to mean. Like what I make it up to mean is let's partner together in a relationship that maybe somebody else would call coaching. Maybe somebody else would say, well, that kind of looks a little bit like therapy. It's not. It's whatever we co-create it to be. And what I want to offer, what I like present it as, is let's just kind of hold each other accountable for not pretending not to be infinite. If we get together and my role is to hold you accountable for remembering you are an infinite being who often pretends not to be, but you don't have to. Like at any time, you can look at your experience in a new way. You can look at your experience of, oh yeah, right, I'm infinite. Just temporarily forgot there for a second. That's getting out of your own way. That's stopping making trouble for yourself. That's going to allow progress. So if you show up with your infinite imagination supply, and I show up with my infinite imagination supply, and we let them play together, we've got an imagination partnership that will allow you to create whatever you want in your life. And so that's what's happened with my coaching practice. It's just evolved countless times over the years, and this is the latest evolution.
It's interesting that you mentioned holding accountable, because it kind of brought to mind what listeners might be familiar with, accountability partners, or accountability buddies, as one person called it. And imagination partner almost sounds like the opposite, because accountability partners are, hey, it's 10 a.m. Tuesday morning. Did you do the thing we were supposed to do? And did we get that done? And are you on your path with all of that planning and overthinking? Whereas the imagination session, like we had one kind of as friends, but it was like to get an idea of what it is. And it was a lot more of the yes and opening up this infinite realm of possibilities. It's not like, okay, I'm going to hold you accountable on Tuesday mornings for getting this thing done because it's on the plan. It's more like a way to get out of your own way by having someone to reflect upon those improvs that we need to proceed in our daily lives and business.
Yeah, we don't need people to tell us what to do. Like if you are going for therapy or coaching, you're going to find more value in your relationship with that support person if you are allowing them to point you inward, to discover what's already there that you might not have noticed before, or that you might have looked at in one way, thinking it was the only way, when in fact there's infinite other ways of looking at that same thing and seeing what's new and different about it. So my accountability is not, Jim, did you do the thing? It's, Jim, are you willing to look at how else can you make sense of your experience? Can you see that right now you're pretending not to be infinite? Where is the piece of your infinite imagination supply or curiosity supply or confidence supply, whatever supply it may be, that you're pretending not to notice, that you can then suddenly start to notice? And when you notice it, what happens? All right, so the answers come from within you. The accountability is not for doing the thing. The accountability is for looking where you need to look that you weren't looking before.
I never looked at it that way. I do encourage everyone to check out DaveBermanCoaching.com, because this isn't video, but he's got a great graphic there about kind of the yin yang that we touched on earlier. And you say progress is the result that occurs when we stop making trouble for ourselves. And in this image, you've got the feel good and the feel bad. And under feel good, you've got allow, easy, and progress. And under feel bad, you got resistance, difficulty, and self-sabotage. And it kind of sums up in a nutshell, or in a yin yang, almost everything we've talked about there.
Yeah.
But there is one last thing before I let you go. You mentioned in your book, your infinite laughter supply is always available. We talked about that. And we talked how to benefit from laughter. And I know laughter exercise, laughter exercises aren't necessarily your thing anymore. And I understand the reasoning there. But for someone who thinks, oh, I'm in no mood to laugh right now, I'm really stuck about this thing and I need to, figure this out. And laughter could help them there. But they're in no way ready to laugh because they're not, it's not a funny situation. Is there a way to break that ice and get yourself laughing? Is there any simple exercises that someone can take to feel the laughter just so that they can get the benefit of it so that it's easier next time. Maybe we could just do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is something not suitable for words to explain. It's something people can learn in their experience. And I know, because we've been friends 20 years, that you've learned this from experience. So I know you don't need to ask me this question. You could answer it through your own experience. Like, it's just breath.
That is how you start.
It comes from an understanding, not from a technique. If you keep looking to a technique, you're going to ask yourself, am I doing this right or wrong? Why does this not feel good? Because you're trying. Stop trying. Allow. Just breathe and make sounds and let the sounds continue and surrender. Allow the breath and the sound to continue. And it may not feel very good in the beginning. Those feelings are telling you about the thinking you've got in that moment. As the thoughts change, the feelings change. We should laugh.
I think we should do this. And before we do that, I'd love to just kind of leave this out with laughter. But Dave, what are you most proud of and where can people learn more?
I am most proud of the Simple Book of Infinity. DaveBermanCoaching.com. There's the link to the book on the homepage, picture of the cover of the book on the homepage. Yeah. The formation of that book taking form, is what led me to finding the name Dunzan and starting this whole other journey of learning to be simple.
I encourage everyone listening to check it out. It's not a heavy read. It's almost like the Tao Te Ching, where you could just pick it up and see a phrase and run with it, and then open up your mind to that infinite supply of whatever is mentioned at the time. It's got some beautiful graphics in there and an excellent explanation about what those graphics are and where they came from. But it's a series of simple phrases and graphics that get you thinking. So if you find yourself stuck thinking and you need a way to get there, laughter is great. And if you just can't start laughing, I think one of the laughter yoga sessions we went to, they had some exercises that get you laughing. Because what is laughter but the sound of joyful breathing? So if you were to say, well, here I am leading a laughter session, but if we were just to, I mean, it was like they were telling us, say, ha, 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 or ho, 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 right? Right? And then just take it.
But that's like very artificial and manufactured.
Exactly.
And the truth is you have infinite, genuine, authentic laughter in infinite amounts always available. It may not feel like it. The feeling is just letting you know about thinking that you're not infinite, pretending not to be infinite. All of these things completely fit together. To me, they look really simple, but I know that when it's new for people, it doesn't necessarily seem simple. It's okay. Simplicity is only as complicated as you make it.
That's beautiful, Dave. Thank you for joining me. And for anyone who needs help, just laugh. If you're anything like me, you may have a tendency to overcomplicate things. That's just human nature. Well, according to Dunzan, progress is the result that occurs when we stop making trouble for ourselves. And the Simple Book of Infinity is filled with dozens of simple, thought-provoking sayings to help you discover your own infinite potential. We are all infinite beings, pretending not to be. Dunzan says his work here is making that simple to see. Find out for yourself at DaveBermanCoaching.com. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about this episode, or if you have other ideas for the RV Entrepreneur Podcast. So let us know. Reach out in the RVE Facebook group or at therventrepreneur.com. Then take a deep breath and have a good laugh for no reason at all, other than to access a backstage pass for everything the universe has to offer you.
Do you struggle with inadequate cooling in your RV during those sweltering summer months? The issue might be simpler than you think. Did you know that your RV air conditioners are not directly connected to any air ducts in most cases? This common setup drastically reduces their efficiency. Cool RV has engineered a brilliant solution to bridge this gap, priced at only $84.95 each with free shipping. Dive into the details at coolrv.com. That's cool with a K, rv.com. Podcast listeners can save 5% with code RVLIFE. Attention detail-oriented explorers. Do you crave adventure and thrive in independent work environments? ID Plans seeks data rock stars to travel the country surveying commercial properties. Gain or use your tech skills like laser measuring and 3D cameras to gather data on everything from rooftop HVAC units to parking spaces. Challenge yourself in all weather conditions and enjoy the flexibility of managing your own schedule. This is more than a job. It's a chance to explore new places while putting your skills to the test. Competitive pay per project awaits. Are you ready to map your next adventure? Send your resume and work history to workcamperjob@idplans.com. Don't miss out.